Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to have you there. In case my introduction was missed, I'll go again. My name is Rida. I lead the strategy team at eGMAT, and I'm super excited to host with GMAT Club today's success story session with Sai Kiran. Sai Kiran has achieved an exceptional GMAT 725 with a perfect Q90, a stellar V88, and an exceptional D80. And what makes his journey particularly inspiring is not just the final score, but the remarkable progression from a 615 to a 655, finally achieving a 725 in just 21 days after his previous attempt. SaiKiran also accomplished all of this while working a full time job, demonstrating that with the right approach and the right mindset, balancing work and GMAT prep is absolutely possible. And his story is particularly noteworthy because he achieved these perfect scores in quant and near perfect in verbal, putting him in that exceptional 99th percentile. So, today we're really going to dive in, take his insights into how you can replicate and make such a significant improvement, what strategies he used that you can use, and how he maintained consistency throughout his GMAT journey. But before we do all of that, Sai Kiran, can you tell our audience who's meeting you for the first time a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Rida, for that. So my name is Sai Kiran. So I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and it's been like 5 years I'm working post qualification. So I majorly uh, worked in tax during my career, and yeah, so I've been preparing for GMAT for 2 years, I would say, on and off. But this time I decided that this is my final chance to clear this, and I really had give it a go, and I'm very glad that I could do that, honestly.
I'm very glad too. I'm so excited to have been any small part of your journey. But I know that as we really looked back onto this couple months long journey to a 725, what really made success possible was three main things: consistency, structure, and mentality, right? And it's these three pillars of success that drove a 725 score. And I think it resonates with a lot of our audience out there that achieving these three things can sound simple in theory, but putting them into practice is what makes GMAT success so very hard. So let's start with the first one: consistency, right? We mentioned you're a working professional. In fact, you're a CA.
Yeah.
And that is definitely not the easiest of careers to really manage alongside a rigorous prep journey. How did you stay consistent during your GMAT prep?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, like consistency has been a major issue for me.
Mhm.
But this time I decided I have to stay on track. Whatever it might be, I have to be consistent. So the first thing I did, I blocked my calendar for 9 to 12, 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Recurring calendar daily, so that I get a notification. So then it's a call for me that I have to do whatever is there. I have to keep it aside and start preparing. So obviously you might not able to spend entire 3 hours of time, but it's somewhere you have to start. So I should keep that time, and I should practice for 1 hour, 2 hours. Even in the worst case scenario, I used to practice for 30 minutes so that I
Mhm.
don't miss that gap. uh, I suggest, like, even if you take gap, don't prolong it for more than 2 days. It will again break down your cycle and the rhythm. Uh, so I would say, yeah, planning the blocking your calendar and trying to put some minimum time at least per day would be go to for the consistency, I would say.
Understood. So, consistency obviously played a key role, but as you invested this time, how you structured your prep and what you actually did with that time is also critical to make sure that consistency goes hand in hand with success, right? So, how did you structure your prep? What were the kind of steps that you took to make sure that you had a clearly defined path?
Yeah. So before enrolling to EGMAT, I started preparing on my own, like using the OG guides and everything. But I have seen some score plateau. That's the reason I thought I need some structured approach and some guidance. So that's how I enrolled in EGMAT in the first place. So so and you remember we got into a call and then we structured the plan daily. What is the target I have to finish within this timeline? And I feel that structured approach, kind of the milestone based approach, is one thing that helped me to stay on track. And also, whenever you achieve that milestone, it gives a further motivation for me to go to the next step and continue that. Uh, so I feel that structured planning, whether it comes timeline and the milestone, kind of helped me to structure my thoughts on my preparation plan, I would say.
Okay, fantastic. And let's actually take a real quick second to look at this plan, right?
Yeah.
We can see that initially with your plan, we actually just planned to a 705.
Yes.
We've in a great sprint actually moved way forward beyond that to a 725. But I can see how that positive feedback would be really, really critical, right? Actually taking the time to do all of these particular steps to achieve the specific goals that we've set out would definitely have that positive impact and that positive feedback. And I think one thing that you mentioned here, breaking things down into milestones, why that's important is because you don't want every step in prep you take to be lost in the sea of all of your steps that you take. So, setting up a milestone, giving yourself that check in point so that you can feed yourself that positivity is a very, very important part of prep as a whole, right? Yeah.
True.
So we have structure in how you thought about executing your prep. But we also looked at structure another way as to how did you actually learn each of these concepts and how did you actually approach each of these different question types. And I think we have that structure to give quite a lot of thanks to for your exceptional scores on verbal and quant as well, right? Now you've achieved the perfect quant score, a perfect Q90, right? How
Yes.
did structure play a role in that Q90 and what does it take to get a perfect quant score?
Sure. So when I enrolled in EGMAT, I don't want to do the entire course, honestly, quant. I thought my quants are already at stronger place. But you insisted on to go to the module again and start from the scratch. So, and one good thing is I didn't have to spend much time because of the pace thing, where if you get the diagnostic test, all the questions correct, it would automatically adjust and give the chapters only which you have to focus on. So that thing is kind of helped me in saving some time for quant, I would say. So whether it's getting the uh, concept based clarity or concept based strengthening the uh, subject, then moving on to the scholarinium to minimize that gaps and hitting that accuracy concept level wise. uh, so honestly, like first initial, I approach quant as a straightforward problem solving methodology, like in 10th or during my childhood, how you have a question, you just have to solve the question and you'll get an answer. But I kind of realized it late in during the later stages of my preparation, I would say. It's not straight away problem solving. There is some logic into that, and there are some traps wantedly built into the questions, which GMAT wants you to miss it. So these are the kind of things which you can figure out only when you uh, read the question properly and when you solve the question systematically, like step by step. So initially I used to do the mental math and used to skip some steps to
Mhm.
save some time. So then I kind of realized it's hurting my accuracy. Then I literally laid down each and every step on the paper, so that I don't miss anything per se. So this kind of the ways of problem solving and the scholarinium, which helps me in tightening the gaps and achieving that accuracy, I would say, with respect to quant.
Mhm.
And also paying attention to the question, paying attention to that traps, led a major role, I would say, in getting that accuracy. Yeah.
Understood. So, if we really had to break this down, right? Then what it really, really boils down to is that first, to get a Q90 on Quant, you have to make sure your concepts are right. Right, whatever you might have forgotten that you learned in your schooling, it's time to refresh that memory and really um, understand how we can bolster that concept mastery. Then, once you've done that, it's about ensuring that you don't fall into the traps that the style of GMAT questioning really sets out for you. And in that process, really getting the right kind of quizzing is very, very essential, right? So, that is really what we are kind of looking at. And throughout all of this, with the right kind of tools, you can, of course, save time. I know that through PACE, you save 45 hours. But at the end of the day, no matter how you're preparing, it's important to understand what are the concepts tested and how well do you know each of these concepts. That is very, very critical, right? Now, I see that Nishesh on the sidelines has a lot of questions. Nishesh, we will absolutely get to them, right? We'll talk about the timeline, we'll talk about what went right and wrong on test day, but let's get some further insight into the structure of how Sai approached his prep, and then we'll circle back. Yeah? Okay, so this was Quant. Now, on the quant side, as we see, we can absolutely look at how this staged approach really took you to the right level, right? And we can also predict your level of success because I can really, really see that as we look at your, say, your stats on the Skull Radium platform, right? It really does go to show how well you have um, executed on fixing the small gaps and executed on actually getting to those 90th percentile scores. We can see that you've for hard accuracy continue to improve. In fact, in algebra, you've moved all the way to 100% hard accuracy, and that's because you focused on those very, very small details, right? Now, that was for the quant side. For verbal, I know that the challenge was a little bit different, right? So before we talk about how you structured the path to a V88, what were the challenges that you faced on the verbal side?
Yeah, I would say for CR, I mean, I already gone through the entire module of EGMAT, where pre-thinking is something it advocated very much. And obviously, I've gone through the module, but I'm still want to stick with my old approach, which was just reading the passage and eliminating the answer choices, basis answer choice elimination. But as I'm going through the module and as I'm practicing more and more, then I thought, why couldn't I give it a shot? So then I started kind of doing that pre-thinking. So it's not like I used to get the exact pre-think the exact answer. I should pre-think the approach, pre-think the what it might be. Suppose there's a cause and effect in a weakening question. I would have thought maybe some other cause might be a weakener. So in those lines, and then I used to proceed to the answer choice elimination. And I feel there are instances where even though I'm scoring well, I'm not confident on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Ki, is it my true accuracy? Then used to reassure that your pace is showing very well stats. You are doing good. You're good in CR, and that kind of reassurance also helped me. So I think as I practice more and more the CR, this pre-thinking kind of became unknowingly. I started pre-thinking, and it definitely helped me in saving time, whether it's to be confident on eliminating the answer choice or selecting the right answer. I would say, yeah.
Oh.
And yeah, coming to RC, my problem with RC is sometimes I used to score very well
Mm-hmm.
accuracy, and sometimes I used to score very less. Even in I used to score high in hard questions and low in the easy questions. Uh,
Okay,
this,
that's I think we have to pause on that because that is very, very strange that you get the
yes.
tougher questions here correct, but you fumble on the medium ones. That is truly strange. So why was that happening?
Uh, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not understanding the passage well. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that is one thing I have fixed later in the later stages. Uh, and yeah, mostly the main point questions I would falter sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But later on, that same for RC also. I keep on practicing. I built my mental strength by practicing a longer passages, and also I have gone through many videos again and again, whether it's comprehension module of EGMAT. I
Mhm.
think I've probably gone through 3 times now or 4 times. I don't remember. So to get that full understanding how to approach the RC, like the key points, like how to predict what the passage wants to tell you, and also like not focusing too much on the facts. Like you don't have to remember everything in the passage. You just have to make be strategic about what you have to remember and what to let go. I think these are some of the things kind of help me in comprehending the passage more, which in
Mhm.
turn help me in answering the questions with higher accuracy. I would say for the RC.
Understood. Throughout both CR and RC, it looks like you did a little bit of unlearning. You know, like you used to follow a certain process, then you had to let it go and learn something new. Was that hard to do? Was that a difficult
It is
kind of,
difficult, yeah.
right?
But you have to realize it, and you have to do it, and you feel happy when you finally see the results of doing that. So yeah, it's worth it.
I'm glad. I think absolutely with a V88, I can see that the hard work, whatever we put in, was definitely worth the result, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, again, last thing before we move to our third pillar for success mentality, right? Coming back to structure. Now, when we really talk about the timelines of your prep, you started out, you already had some basis of knowledge because you had previously studied for the GFE. Started out with a mock score of 615 thanks to that pre existing knowledge back in May. Then we studied, we excelled, and we improved to a 655 couple months down the line by September, right? And
Yes.
we knew that that 655 was a little bit of an underperformance as well, which is why we decided to take the test again at the next opportunity, 21 days later in October, and get to a 725, right?
Yes.
Now, how did we structure and what did we focus on during attempts one and two, right? And for anyone else who might be in a similar situation, especially with approaching R2 deadlines, how do you maximize a short amount of time between attempts?
Yeah, sure. So one thing is like after 655 attempt, I'm kind of happy and sad at the same time, because I thought the exam went very bad and I will score even less, but it turned out to be decent. And then we discussed, and then we are sure that this is not my true level. I could have definitely scored better, right? So next thing we have focused for this 21 days is just analyzing what went wrong in the first exam, noting the key weak points and focusing on those. So
Mhm.
these 21 days, I would say I haven't learned any new topics or techniques per se. It's just I continued practicing first thing to maintain the momentum, and I made sure my second attempt is also same time, same center, so that there is no external factors that would affect me. And I tried whatever weak sections I faltered in first official test. I practiced more on those sections
Mhm.
and take the sectional mocks to see whether there is improvement in those areas. And I keep my calm. That's the major thing for these 21 days. It's not like I spend crazy hours also these.
Mhm.
So I just being consistent. Whatever time I'm spending earlier, I used to spend same time, only fixing the minor gaps, whether it's topic level wise or it whether it might be mentally or uh, yeah, towards exam.
Over.
Yeah.
Understood. So those 21 days were just about consistency, they were about mentality. And like you said, we didn't overhaul anything. We didn't realize that, hey, what you're doing in CR is not working. Let's completely learn something new in 21 days. No, we had a solid base. We refined that base. We, as you very correctly mentioned, did an error analysis and looked for the gaps and then really improved towards success, right? Okay. Now, mentality is a word you've just mentioned. So let's hop on to that because I think that the mentality that you had and the actions that resulted from that mentality were a very, very key part of this 725 score, right?
Yes.
So what is the the mentality that a 725 scorer should have, if you had to say it in a sentence or two?
uh, I would say first thing you should be cool headed,
Mm.
and second thing you should be extremely focused. I mean, these both things kind of feel like opposite, but it's not.
Okay.
So I mean, being stressed doesn't mean you're focused. So these are both two things. I would say you have to be focused, like attempt each question at a time. Don't focus on any other stuff. Like for example, when I'm taking that 725 attempt, like for
Mhm.
quant I felt like all the questions are easy. Then I've thought I might be doing something wrong, I got all the easy questions per se. But that didn't affect me. I moved on to the further sections without thinking about that. So yeah, I would say major thing is extremely focused and keeping a cool head. These are the two things that will definitely help.
Understood. And I think you mentioned quant, but if I remember correctly, during the quant section of the exam, there was one point in time where something happened that might have shaken that
Yes.
mentality, right? What happened on quant on the test day?
So on the quant, so first I attempted quant verbal and DI is my section. So
Mhm.
first question was done, and in the second question I was stuck, and I
Mhm.
spent 5 minutes in my second question. And honestly, I was nervous. I spent so much of time. But one thing I learned from my experience, from my mocks, from my previous tests is don't dwell on one question for so much of time. You
Mhm.
have to move on. You have to break that emotion and move on to next question. So I decided, okay, 5 minutes is done, whatever is done, let's move on to next question. Let me try to compensate if possible. Otherwise, worst case, I'll get one question wrong, whatever it is. So I immediately moved on to the second question. Then immediately the next question felt easier. Then in back of my mind, I thought maybe second question was wrong. That's the reason it's easier. But I keep on going, and I have like, I don't know, 6 to 10 minutes. I left
Mhm.
after completing all the questions. Then I came back and saw this question, the second question, and there is another 15th question I marked as review, and it turned out that both the questions are correct. So that kind of surprised me actually, but yeah. So the lesson here is like, don't dwell on the question for longer time, move on to the next, so that anyway you can come back and correct it if you have a time after the end of the section. That's it.
Exactly. And I think internalizing that was the most important thing because, like you said, quant was your first section. If you had given up at that point, when unbeknownst to you, you were at a Q90 ability, that would have completely changed the path that we took for verbal and DI, right? So I think that maintaining a calm and cool head, staying emotionally away from the test that you're attempting and focusing just on execution are the absolute key things that you need for success and for I would say keeping a calm cool head in that test environment, right? So
That's true.
that
Yeah.
I think really really well done. So other than keeping this calm cool head, and other than that, I think you had a couple of other mental strategies that you really employed before, during, and after, before and during the test as well, to ensure success, right?
Yeah, so okay, on the test day, I did some practice before going to the test center so that I'll get that momentum of answering the questions, I would say. And yeah, I listen to some music to keep myself in the calm. And also, I think that 655 also had some factor here that it helped me to stay calm because I already have some score. So I don't have to be so nervous about it. And honestly, the second attempt didn't feel like something so serious attempt. I
Mhm.
felt like I'm just going there again and giving the exam and coming out. So that's the mindset I had before going to the exam hall. I'd say. Yeah.
Understood. Fantastic. So I think the important thing is you set yourself up for success, not just from question one, but from day minus one, right? From the day before, you had a calm head in mind. You knew you were just going in like it was any other day to write the test. You warmed up before the test, ensuring that you're thinking before question one on the exam, right? And you listen to some music just to get yourself in the right headspace. So, overall, success comes not from question one, but from day minus one, from day minus three, wherever it is. If you want success, you have to set yourself up for it way before you start, right? So, I think that's the key takeaway here. Okay. Now, throughout all of this, we mentioned this briefly, I was your mentor as well, right? But how does just having someone else on the journey contribute to whether it's consistency or structure or mentality, right? How does having someone else aid you to fulfill those goals?
Sure. So one thing I would say, I mean, someone has laid out to me the entire plan for me, which otherwise I would have to done that. So, I mean, since you have made so much of experience, you know what kind of thing works or how we can do that. And second thing I would say, like being accountable, like there is someone who will check up on you, like if you don't meet your goals, and that kind of I mean, some people might need that factor to be consistent. They need some accountability factor. And the third thing I would say is some external push or validation. Like told you about the CR instance where I'm not confident, but you are confident on me more than myself. So that kind of boosted my confidence because sometimes patience is one of the key things in this preparation because it is something takes 4 5 months depending on the person capability. So you have to be patient. Sometimes you might not see the results, but you have to trust the process and keep going and to achieve that whatever you want. So that really, if some external mentor definitely helps you in those low periods of time, I would say.
I'm so glad I could be any small part of this journey at all. My confidence from you stemmed one from your drive, but two, just about the results of all of the hard work that you were putting in. For CR, you had a fantastic 75% accuracy on hard questions. So we knew that with that data, with that metrics, you were destined for a 95th plus percentile score, right? And so, whether out there you're working with a mentor or whether you have a study buddy, right, or you're following someone else's journey alongside to keep yourself accountable, pushing yourself out of your personal GMAT bubble and making sure that you're not alone in this journey, I think goes a long way in ensuring that you cross that finish line when you need to, right? So, wonderful. I'm really happy. I think let's take some of the questions that we have. I can see that Soma has a question which about the difficulty level of questions that you faced, right? So she's used the OG guide, and I believe you have attempted OG questions as well. So
Yeah.
did you think that real GMAT questions were more or less of the same difficulty, and how, or did you need to cover a lot of extra concepts?
I feel it is similar. The difficulty level is similar, but the OGs, I feel it might be somewhat easier. But the
Mhm.
official mocks, I feel that those are more accurate to the actual exams. That's what I felt. So yeah.
Understood. And remember that the official mocks also have the added benefit of really giving you that test day experience before you step into the test center with their UI, with their um, feedback. So it's always a good idea if you're using the OG as one of your main sources to also loop in those official mocks for practice, right? So I think that is really, really key. Yash also asked, what resources did you use for your preparation? So, as we know, you used the EGMAT platform, but
Yes.
was there, what other resources did you really use during this time?
So other than EGMAT, I used to practice OG questions from GMAT Club.
Mhm.
So they have a real cool feature of filtering the questions difficulty level wise, source wise, and official mocks. Uh, I would say these are and I used to watch GMAT Ninja videos also once in a while. So these are the sources I have used.
Understood. And I think Nishesh has a question. We briefly covered it, but timeline of your prep. When did you start prep? When was the 615? And how much time to get to finally 725? Think from May to early October, was with EGMAT till that 725 with the 655 in about September, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And but when did you really start your entire prep as a whole?
I would say vaguely 2 years back, but I was so on and off. And in classic, I got Platue till 640.
Hmm.
I think the same is reflecting here 615 in GMAT Focus Edition. So, yeah.
Understood. So let's actually hone in on that for a quick second. You said you plateaued at that 640 or about 615 level on this particular exam, right? If
Yes.
someone right now, and again, we're in late November, our two deadlines are last week of Jan, first week of December for folks in India applying to ISB. Those deadlines are even closer with round two, right? If you had to really think about what can you do right now to break that score plateau or increase your points maybe by a critical 30 to 40 points right now, just looking back at your own journey, what would you do in that 1 month period right now if you were at still at a 615?
Honestly, I'll definitely look for some external help because the main thing you have to do to break that plateau is you have to really deep down go and analyze why you're not improving. So there might be some areas of improvement, which sometimes you might not be able to see those things, where some external perspective might help in analyzing those and so that you can practice on that and improve from there onwards. Yeah.
Got it. So sometimes just seeking that outside opinion would have really made all the difference in actually breaking that score plateau. I think that that is absolutely true, right? And I think also it's important that when you're looking at that score plateau, you really understand, okay, what is your accuracy on medium questions? What is your accuracy on hard questions? And where are you struggling to really push, right? Are you struggling to even get the medium questions right? Really showing that you don't have the accuracy for uh, you don't have a concept level clarity, or are you getting good at medium questions but you need to really fill in your application gaps? Those are the questions you need to answer. Okay. Soma has another question. Your videos for CR in the verbal section. Soma, uh, GMAT Club and eGMAT both host a wide variety of CR sessions that you should attend. I think Sai Kiran can attest to the value of pre-thinking in CR. He went from CR skeptic to a V88 scorer. So definitely that is there, right? But Second, as we really guide Soma to YouTube videos, right? Can you just recap exactly how uh, pre-thinking, how you internalize pre-thinking so that she can do the same?
Yeah, sure. So initially, as I said, I was not very confident about that approach. I thought it's a time waste per
Mhm.
se. So then I thought I'll give it a shot, or I kind of started after immediately reading the passage. I started taking a moment and try to think of a situation, or even though I didn't go to the exact example, it's fine. You can come up with some scenario, like as I explained in the weakener. So obviously initially you feel like it will take so much of time, but with a lot of practice I feel it will be second nature. Almost immediately you after you read the passage, it will come into your mind. You automatically, that guessing thing comes into your mind. Then you can proceed with the answer choice elimination. uh, so with a lot of practicing, this approach will help you in being confident, and you don't need to think as you're pre-thinking. It will automatically come to your mind. Yeah.
You don't need to think as you're pre-thinking. That's very nice. I really like that, right? But Soma, do visit the YouTube channel to really look at some previous CR sessions that we've done. That's a really good baseline. And also, really practice on some OG questions. You can look at the EGMAT free trial as well so that you can really work through and fill in your CR gaps. Okay, I see Nishesh has another question. You're checking the EGMAT options. Do you get a mentor in every plan? Yes. I mean, Sai can back me up here. You had a mentor even before you technically started with the LMP program, right? And all you need to do if you're on the GMAT platform and you want to talk to your mentor is just drop us an email or through the chat option, drop us a quick message with your queries, and we'd be more than happy to either introduce ourselves if that's all you want or help you out as needed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sort of says, I don't think IDK, pre-thinking is not a good approach as per GMAT Ninja because of a couple of very logical reasons, and you lean on GMAT Ninja. That's fair, sort of. If you found a process that works for you, you should stick to it. But this is not a one size fits all scenario. As we can see, even with Sai Kiran, it was a process to really using pre-thinking appropriately, right? And I think even for everything that you learn, Sai Kiran, it was about taking things to the right degree, right? No matter the concept or the process,
Yes.
right? So it really is just, I completely understand your concern that something might not work out for you initially. But like we're saying, don't fix what's not broken. But if something's not working the way you need to, as Sai Kiran did, do the hard thing, unlearn and relearn for better outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Oh, sorry.
I said totally agree.
Wonderful. Right. So I think that overall, if we really had to recap and understand exactly what worked for you, it was consistency, it was structure, it was mentality. And these three things spanned not just how you planned your prep, it also planned how you executed on each question type, and and how you actually approached the exam as well. So, looking at how these factors lean into your individual prep journeys is really, really what is the most important thing, right? Okay, Saurav has another question. What was your strategy around quality versus quantity in verbal? So, Sai, do you want to talk about
Yeah.
that?
So I think I almost exhausted Scholarinium of EGMAT. Uh, I feel EGMAT questions are for verbal are pretty good. And also I did lot of practice, lot of questions. But honestly, the one thing I realized towards later of my journeys, uh, error log, like maintain analyzing the questions where you got wrong. So towards the end of my prep, I realized on focusing on detailed analysis. Like Rida used to ask me, like, have you analyzed your error log? I used to say no. Then she used to tell me, do that analysis, and then you'll find out what you are going wrong. So I feel uh, analyzing the questions, like even though if you practice 10 questions, if you deep down into that and break it down where you're going wrong and where you going correct, that will kind of help you in saving some time. You don't have to practice like huge number of questions, I would say. So definitely I'll be quality over quantity if you ask.
Right. And especially if you're sort of on a short time span, taking away what you can from each and every question will ensure that you don't make repeated mistakes. And as you go from quiz to quiz, the mistakes that you make are better mistakes on harder questions. And we're not really walking and trying to fix the same issue over and over again, right? So, practice, you need to practice, you need to expose yourself to the right question set. But if you don't focus on the quality of your error analysis and the quality of your corrective actions, that quantity is effectively not used, right? So that's really what we would say. Okay. Nishesh asks also, do you remember the score breakdown of 615? Do you remember, or shall I tell them? You don't
No,
remember.
no,
I,
no.
I remember. You actually started out with a V83 and a Q85, which makes sense because you did have GCE prior knowledge.
Yes.
And then you started out on the lower end with DI with a D74. So you started off with V85, V83, Q85, D74. That's where we really started out, right? And sort of asks, when is the right time to start practicing with a timer? You want
Uh,
to?
yeah, I would say first you have to get your concepts right, and focus on accuracy first. I think automatically once you focus on accuracy, your timing automatically gets reduced. Then, as a next step, you can start practicing by keeping a time constraint to get the idea of GMAT exam. Yeah.
Very, very true. And I would say, sort of think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. When you're first starting out, you have training wheels just so that you can focus on balance. Once you know how to balance yourself and kick the pedals all at once, you take those training wheels off and you can start focusing on speed, right? And then you can go push yourself down a hill and try and go as fast as you can without falling, right? So, same mentality here. Make sure you can attempt all these questions effectively, you have the right kind of accuracy, and then start to work on doing things faster and faster. And you'll see that as you focus on steps 1 and 2, time will naturally really take uh, be managed on its own to a large extent. Okay. And lastly, Manav asks, how long did you take? Right? So started this GMAT journey 2 years ago, but effectively for 615 to 725, I'd say you took from May to September to get to 655, and 21 days between September and October for 655 to 725. That's how long everything took, right?
Yes.
Okay. But I think unless we have other questions, we can really maybe wrap it up. Let's wait for a second to see if anyone else asks. But overall, right, before we really close things out, Sai Kiran, is there any final piece of advice that maybe we haven't covered that you really want to um, leave the audience with as your final words of advice?
Sure. I think we haven't covered on DI. Can we shed
Oh,
some
yes.
light on DI?
We can.
Yeah.
Overall, yes, you did. Overall, I think while the score was the least on the DI section, it still is an impressive 6 point improvement, right? And I think DI is one of those more dynamic sections where it's not as cut and dry as verbal and quant. So, what skill sets did you really utilize on the DI section to get to an 80?
Yeah, so I feel like many people face with timing issues in DI majorly. Because personally I face that issue when it comes to DI. So I feel some of the things that help me in DI is uh, trying to practice all kinds of questions in graphical interpretation, table analysis, or MSR, two-part analysis. Data sufficiency, something is already there. So for the new type of questions, practicing all the different kind of graphs or kind of questions helps them to familiarize with the questions so that they won't be uh, surprised in the actual exam. That is one thing. It will definitely help with the timing part. And second thing, I would say try to be as strong as possible in the data sufficiency so that it will help with some time which you can spend more on the other sections. And MSR I approached same as RC. Like I used to go through all the three tabs and make a note, and then I used to attempt all the three questions. That really helped me in hitting accuracy in MSR, I would say. And overall, I definitely feel it's time consuming in the official exam. So these are some of the things I feel it will help them to answer that. And coming to the subject wise, it's not anything new. Whatever you learned in quant and verbal translates to here. So it's just you have to practice the questions, the way it's structured, and also you have to be so accurate because each question has sub questions. So you have to make sure you get everything right. Then only it's considered as right. And I feel DI is somewhat forgiving. Honestly, I got 9 questions wrong. Maybe those
Mhm.
are very hard questions. So despite that, I got Q80, so DI 80. So I feel these are some things I learned with respect to DI.
Understood. And I think what you've just said about timing also ties into Tammy's question, where they really ask, what's the secondary time to manage under 2 minutes per question? You didn't manage 2 minutes per question, right? That wasn't the focus at all when answering question, was it? Should it be a
No,
focus?
no, I don't think it should be. The focus should be answering the entire section within the time. I mean, you don't have to be so specific to the question, because sometimes you might spend little over time. For other questions, you might spend very little time, which will compensate for this. So my focus used to be like on a section wide rather than individual question. But obviously, if you feel it's taking so much of time, you have to definitely guess and move on to the second question. Yeah.
Very, very true, right? So, Tammy, one thing to really remember here is that 2 minutes per question is a one size fits all, and one size doesn't fit all, right? You need to think about how you'll be spending less time on your easier questions, which will allow you to spend more time on your difficult questions. And like we saw in things like DI, as Sai said, you want to get really good at DS because those will save you some time, so you can afford to spend extra time on things like MSR and graphs where you need to naturally invest more time. So don't cut yourself off at 2 minutes just because the amount of time you might need, even in a best case scenario where everything goes right, could be more, right? Because the GMAT itself is a series of checks and balances where you can afford to uh, speed up on certain things and invest somewhere else, right? And I think what we're discussing right now also ties into sort of what was your decision to evaluate if a question was a pass? So when did you decide to let a question go?
So, yeah, I intuitively know sometimes, like if I spend more time, I intuitively know ki, I'm taking so much of time to solve this. I'm resolving this question. Then I decide ki, it's not worth it. Let's move on to the next question. So if you ask me the timing wise, exact timing wise, probably 3 to 4 minutes, I would say. Then I'll decide it's a definite no. I have to guess and move on.
Mhm. Sort of, if I had to give you an answer as someone who's mentored at this point hundreds of GMAT students, I think this is adding on to what Sai said. If you had to make your own decision tree, this is really what I would say, right? The first thing is you should learn that passing a question is something you should do regardless of the difficulty level, right? Whether it's your, like with Sai in the case of Quant, the second question on the Quant, or whether it's the 18th question, if you're investing more time than you actually should, you should let it go. If you've reread the question 2 to 3 times and you're not making any progress, if you usually spend 2 minutes on this particular question type, but you're at 1 minute 45 and you still think you need another 2 minutes to solve it, right? Or if you're just completely stuck at a certain point and you don't know how to get yourself out of this hole, it's better to let this question go and move forward, because you have to understand that the time that you invest on these questions, you're not investing, you're stealing from your last couple of questions, right? So when you switch your mentality from I'm wasting the time I've invested on this question to I'm stealing time away from your last couple of questions, making the decision to let a question go also becomes a whole lot easier. I hope that helps. All right. Lamis, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. Lamis asks, is it better to simultaneously work through verbal and quant? Is it? From what did you do?
No. I feel better to structure your preparation sequentially. First, finish one section, master that section, then move on. What you can do while preparing the second section, you might simultaneously take occasional quizzes so that you'll be in touch with the subject and you won't lose out on that. But yeah, I don't prefer the simultaneous studying like from the scratch.
Yeah. I think, Lamis, if you're already starting at a super high ability with one particular subsection, then you can afford to maintain that ability as you build from the scratch for another section. But if you need to build from the scratch for both the sections, verbal and quant, it is best to build one thing and then build the other, right? Work sequentially and work first on whichever will give you the maximum points boost. So if you're worse at verbal, then quant, start with verbal, get the maximum impact on your score, then move to the quant side. That is what we would really say, right? All right, I think we have answered that sudden onslaught of final questions. One last question from Meet, who asks which coaching should we join? I'm from EGMAT, Sai has used EGMAT, so I think his success speaks to that. But you should make a decision based on what factors need to work out for you, whether that's the timing of your preparation, the cost, and what you're looking to achieve, the kind of learning style that fits you, right? And if you think EGMAT is the one, look out at our free trial, see how the methodologies really work, see how the interface really works, and ensure that you are using all the right resources for the right kind of success, right? But that is really what you should do. Evaluate your needs and what fit into those. But okay, I think that that is everything. So once again, Sai Kiran, thank you so, so much for taking the time today. I know Wednesday, 9 p.m., it must be a little bit tiring, but I'm sure that the feedback, the insights, and the three pillars of success that we've carved out here are really going to help a lot of people make the right decisions on, before, and after test day as well, right? So thank you so much. And thanks to you from everyone from EGMAT. And to everyone out there, if you have more questions from Sai's story about your GMAT prep as a whole, don't hesitate to reach out to us on the EGMAT team or the folks at GMAT Club. You can reach out to us for questions about Sai's story to support@egmat.com. But until then, and until we meet on our next success story, all the very best. Happy learning and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, folks. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.